I am Paul Bartolome G. Casseeding. Welcome to this deep dive lesson on positivism, one of the most influential philosophical foundations in the field of research. Today, using ideas from Research Methods in Education by Lewis Cohen, Lawrence Mannion, and Keith Morrison, we'll explore what positivism is, how it developed, its assumptions, and how it shapes the scientific method, especially in the social sciences and in education. Positivism has roots reaching all the way back to ancient Greek philosophy, but it became a formalized doctrine in the 19th century through the work of Auguste Comte, the French philosopher who first coined the term. For Comte, the best way to understand human behavior was to rely on direct observation and rational analysis, much like the methods used in the natural sciences. Instead of introspection or abstract speculation, Comte argued that society should be studied empirically, meaning through data gathered by the senses, seeing, hearing, measuring, and recording. One of Comte's groundbreaking ideas was that society itself could be studied scientifically. He proposed that social phenomena follow patterns and could be examined just like physical or biological processes. This led to a broad doctrine. Only knowledge grounded in sensory experience, tested through observation and experiment, is truly reliable. Over time, positivism came to imply something larger: that natural science provides the ideal model for all forms of knowledge, including human behavior, education, and social institutions. But there's a challenge. Humans are far more complex and unpredictable than rocks, chemicals, or planets. So applying positivism to education and classroom life becomes difficult. The interactions between teachers, students, motivations, emotions, and social contexts create layers of complexity that are not always reducible to neat laws. Determinism. The first assumption is determinism, the belief that events have causes, and those causes can be discovered. Science assumes the universe is orderly, not random. If something happens, it happens because certain conditions produced it. For example, a chemical reacts because its components interact. A student succeeds because of certain measurable influences: practice, instruction, support, or prior achievement. Scientists aim to uncover these causal patterns so they can explain, predict, and sometimes control outcomes. Empiricism. Science also relies on empiricism, the idea that knowledge must come from the senses. A theory is only as strong as the evidence supporting it. To call something scientific, it must be observable, measurable, and verifiable. Mouly's 5 stages of empirical science experience. The starting point: observing the world. Classification: organizing data into categories. Quantification: measuring phenomena precisely. Discovering relationships: identifying patterns. Approximation to truth: gradually refining understanding. Science doesn't claim final truths, it approximates truth over time. Next is parsimony, often summarized as explain things as simply as possible, without oversimplifying. Scientists prefer explanations that use fewer assumptions or fewer variables, as long as they account for the evidence. Finally, science values generality, the idea that findings from particular cases can be extended to wider populations. Natural sciences often achieve broad general laws, but in human sciences, like education, generalization must be done cautiously because human behavior varies widely. According to Kurlinger, people hold 2 broad views of what science is. The static view sees science as a growing collection of facts. Scientists add discoveries to the pile, building a repository of knowledge. The dynamic view sees science as a process, an active, evolving, questioning endeavor. Discovery matters more than the current set of facts. For professional researchers, science fundamentally aims at explanation, prediction, and control, and the ultimate product of this scientific activity is theory. Science uses theories to explain how and why phenomena occur. Kurlinger defines theory as a structured set of concepts and propositions that explain relationships among variables. Theories help researchers organize data, identify gaps in knowledge, form new hypotheses, expand understanding, predict outcomes. Not all theories are the same. Empirical theories rely heavily on data. Critical theories question power, inequality, and social structures. Grand theories like Marxism or functionalism aim to explain entire social systems, though often criticized for being elegant but impractical. Characteristics of strong empirical theories: testable and falsifiable, compatible with observed evidence, simple without oversimplifying, predictive, able to respond to anomalies, generates further research, states clear conditions for verification. Concepts help researchers make sense of the world. Words like achievement, alienation, or democracy are conceptual tools. They don't exist independently of people. We invent them to understand experience. Social scientists refine ordinary words into precise technical concepts to study complex realities. A hypothesis is a testable statement predicting a relationship between two or more variables. It is not a random guess. It's formulated through study, observation, and reasoning. Characteristics of a good hypothesis: clearly expresses relationships, testable with real-world data, compatible with existing knowledge, stated concisely. Hypotheses guide research, narrow focus, and make testing possible. The scientific method isn't a single universal formula. It's a collection of procedures used to ensure findings are reliable and replicable. Cohen, Mannion, and Morrison highlight stages such as identifying phenomena, observing and classifying, establishing relationships, experimenting to test causality, building theories, applying theories to new problems. Hitchcock and Hughes later proposed an 8-stage flow. 1. Forming guesses or hypotheses. 2. Designing experiments. 3. Observing correlations. 4. Building explanations. 5. Testing predictions. 6. Accepting or rejecting hypotheses. 7. Making generalizations. 8. Forming new theories. Positivist paradigm is concerned with understanding phenomena. It strives for objectivity, measurability, predictability, controllability, patterning, the construction of laws and rules of behavior, and the ascription of causality. Observed phenomena are important in positivist paradigm. Positivism has shaped the foundations of scientific research for centuries. While it offers powerful tools for building reliable knowledge, especially through observation and systematic testing, it also has limitations, particularly when applied to the complexity of human behavior and educational settings. Still, understanding positivism is essential for anyone who wants to grasp how scientific research works, how theories are built, and how knowledge is validated. While positivism shaped modern scientific inquiry, scholars, philosophers, and social theorists have challenged its assumptions for more than a century. We will examine the major criticisms raised against positivism and the scientific method, especially within the social sciences and education. The revolt against positivism. By the late 19th century, a strong intellectual backlash emerged against positivism. Although positivism helped produce enormous progress in natural sciences, critics argued that its worldview, mechanistic, reductionist, and centered solely on what can be measured, fails to capture the richness of human life. Opponents claimed that positivism reduces life to what can be quantified, ignoring qualities like choice, freedom, morality, and inner experience. Some thinkers emphasize that reality is more like a living organism than a machine, and therefore can't be fully understood by stripping it into measurable parts. Kierkegaard and the question of subjectivity. One of the earliest and most influential critics was the Danish philosopher Søren Kierkegaard, often called the father of existentialism. Kierkegaard believed that truth is deeply personal, concrete, and connected to an individual's own lived experience. He pushed back against positivism's obsession with objectivity, arguing that objective methods turn people into observers, searching for general laws. Real truth lies in subjectivity, how we relate to what we study. For Kierkegaard, even an objective truth means little if the individual's relationship to it is empty. True understanding comes from examining our inner stance, not just external facts. This critique directly challenges positivism's belief that objectivity is always superior. The problem of quantification. Critics such as Ions argued that the social sciences became overly dependent on numbers. While quantification can help reveal patterns, Ions warned that treating measurement as an end in itself reduces people to statistics, erasing the complexity of real human lives. He described this as depersonalizing, a shift from studying people to producing mathematical outputs. Similarly, Horkheimer criticized positivism for turning understanding into computation, a narrow form of knowledge dominated by formulas rather than human meaning. Alienation from the self. Another powerful line of criticism came from thinkers like Rozak and Holbrook. They argued that science's pursuit of objectivity has alienated people from their own inner world. When knowledge is limited to what can be observed externally, qualities like consciousness, self-awareness, moral judgment, creativity, personal meaning are pushed aside. Holbrook argued that positivism neglects the inner life, the values and subjective experiences that give human existence its depth. A narrow image of human nature. Hamden Turner criticized positivistic social science for offering a restricted and conservative view of human beings. He argued that positivism focuses only on the predictable, repeatable, and observable aspects of people. This results in attention on external behaviors, neglect of individuality and freedom, study of isolated parts instead of the whole person. Positivism explains what is easily seen but often misses what truly matters. The critique from critical theory, Habermas and the Frankfurt School. A major philosophical attack on positivism came from Jürgen Habermas and the Frankfurt School. Habermas argued that positivism had become so dominant that it was treated almost like a religion, a belief system in which scientific knowledge was the only legitimate form of knowledge. This position, sometimes called scientism, dismisses other ways of knowing, such as moral reasoning, creativity, aesthetics, interpretation, critique of power. According to Habermas, positivism reduces human action to procedures and technical control, undermining the values, debates, and moral choices essential to human society. He warned that when scientific explanation becomes the only explanation, society risks losing its conscience. The issue of interpretation and human agency. Even within the social sciences, positivism is criticized for ignoring a fundamental difference between humans and objects of nature. Humans interpret themselves and their world. Giddens argued that researchers don't study passive subjects. They study people who think, feel, interpret, and act based on their own ideas. This creates a subject-subject relationship, not a subject-object one. Moreover, the positivist assumption that behavior is determined ignores agency, the ability of individuals to make choices and act intentionally, even within constraints. Chomsky's critique of behaviorism echoes this. We often cannot pinpoint specific stimuli that generate human responses. People do not behave like machines. Trivial findings and artificial conditions. Finally, many critics argue that positivistic research in social science can produce findings so trivial that they're of little use to educators, counselors, and social workers. By overly simplifying real situations, controlling variables, and isolating behaviors in artificial environments, researchers sometimes end up studying a synthetic version of reality, a puppet show, disconnected from the complexity of genuine human experience. Positivism has contributed enormously to our understanding of the natural world, but its application to social life and education raises deep concerns about subjectivity, meaning, human freedom, and moral responsibility. These criticisms have led researchers to explore new paradigms, interpretive and critical approaches, to better capture the richness of human experience.